And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to this week's TTKU, where we're trying to keep up and figure out how we're doing this. Um, this week's guest is Laura Rice. Hi, Laura. It's great to see you.
Hey, for you too.
Um, how about to kick it off, you give us a little update on who you are and what you're doing right now?
Sure. I'm Laura Rice. I am former FDA clinical neuroscientist and biochemical engineer. I left the FDA about a year ago, and I've been out doing regulatory and scientific and data science consulting for a variety of different indications, largely within neuroscience and neurological applications, psychiatric indications. Also gotten into the software as a medical device and diagnostics and AI spaces. I was doing a lot of reviews of those at the FDA. Prior to being at the FDA, I was an academic. I'm still an academic at heart. And prior to that, I was an engineer. So it all kind of connects in this sort of venture that I've started up about a year ago. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Can I ask, were you part of the riffs in that, or like what how'd you
Sure.
leave?
Yeah, I was about 32 weeks pregnant. Doge came in and said, "You're a probationary employee." And along with all the others, February 15th, Saturday around 6 o'clock p.m. Was ironically at my friend's house, who also was at the FDA, PHS. So, pulled out my laptop and was like, panic mode, 2 hours, 2.5 hours of work trying to close up all the files, etc. But after I was out, a couple of clients reached out actually the next day, starting the next day, and recruited me to consulting. So I started doing that. About a week later, FDA called back, their talent office, HR office called back and said, "Great news, you can come back." I said, "Oh, I don't know if it's a good idea. I'm really pregnant right now, so I'm going to stay out, and I'm already committed to these sponsors that I've agreed to support and signed on with." So it was a pretty rapid change in the span of about a week, but I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful to still be interacting with my colleagues at the FDA. Um, I know we're all under a lot of stress and we're doing our best. So turned out
Trying to keep
as
up.
best as it could, I guess, trying to keep up, right?
Wild. So it was. I know there were a few that were. I mean, there were folks that were fired on the Valentine's Day massacre,
Yep,
and
that
then
was me.
brought back later, like a week or so, and then they were maybe riffed again on April Fool's Day of last year, and then some came back. Like it's just been. And I've heard that it was intended in some ways to like cause trauma and like cause people to feel unsettled and like this job is not the stable, reliable job that I thought FDA, working at FDA or like a federal agency would be. So
Yes,
that's
yeah, that was very much the culture and the dynamic at the time. We were getting a lot of emails sort of urging us to accept a buyout. There was also the Vera and retirement buyouts that were adjacent to those, more mass level, anyone can buy out. Not sure if they ever got their payouts, but I didn't take it. I said,
yeah,
I'm gonna do my best until they said, get out and come
yeah.
back.
What was it, the fork,
So
right? Like it was like
yeah, it
we're
was
gonna
the
pay
fork in the
you.
road. Exactly, the fork in the road. They'll pay you essentially if you decide to leave, and they'll do sort of a step down process to make sure they transition your work. But it was an interesting climate. I've gathered that that has gotten better since then. It's been about a little over a year now, so I think there's less of those types of emails coming in. It seems to be a much more stable environment. I know they're hiring a lot more across the board, so I hope they get some good folks back in there. I know there are a lot of good folks that are still there, so very grateful for that.
Absolutely.
It's kind of crazy that it, on both ends, that it's been a whole year, but also that it's only been a year. It both feels like yesterday and forever
A
ago.
lifetime. I guess I agree.
Like raising a kid. You're like, it feels like yesterday you were born, but also 5 million years ago. Um,
Yes,
Was it the
yes,
days are long, but the years are short? I don't know, something like that. Time
yes.
means nothing anymore, I've just decided. Hey, we skipped something super important. Your joke.
Yeah, my joke is on the topic of you know, being fired, illegally fired. What continues to work even after it's fired?
Pottery.
What's that?
Nope.
I
A
don't
What
know.
is it?
neuron. A neuron.
I should have gotten that. I'm a neuroscientist.
I thought
Oh,
that was pretty perfect considering what I said about, I got that email that was like doged, and then I spent 2.5 hours working at that moment because I was like, I can't leave everyone hanging. By that Friday, though, I
well,
had mostly closed the books and had it ready to transition, but
yeah.
that's how committed I was and still am. So most of us were that were let go by Doge.
I would have thrown my laptop in the Potomac immediately.
Nilo's like, and we're done here.
That's the feedback I got from everybody else, but I just think I was still in that trauma and like, oh
Yeah,
no, I need to help.
yeah. You're a
So
helper.
I am a helper.
All right, my joke is, what do you call a hen that's staring at a pile of lettuce? Chicken sees a salad.
Did the chicken eat the salad too?
I don't. I didn't get that far in the, in the joke page. All
That's
right,
cute. I
Nyla,
love it.
you're
Yeah.
up.
Mine was kind of like I just saw someone that built an ATM that only hands out coins. And I can't believe someone didn't think of this before. It just makes sense. Got her.
I thought it was gonna be something about like change, like with time for change or something like that. This makes sense. Okay, here we go. Let's dive into what we're keeping up with this week. And I told Laura ahead of time, Nyla, that some of the ones that she pulled up of new de novos and PMAs, we've already touched on them. But some of the ones that were really exciting. Do you want to just like share a few of your favorites, Laura? Because there were some neuro ones in there that we were pretty
Yeah,
stoked
I
on.
think you already touched on this one a couple weeks ago. I don't know how far you went into it, but the neurovalence medius sparrow. So this is a non-invasive vestibular electrical nerve stimulator. It's VENS. It basically goes right behind your ears, like right around the mastoid process. And back there you have your vestibular nerve. And that, through the brainstem, connects with the brain and the body and helps you to sort of maintain your sense of balance. It also is very involved in the limbic system, which is helping to regulate emotion. Um, and so when we stimulate this, you can cause sort of the sensory effect as though you're swaying. So that's how patients and users of the product know that it's working. They feel like they're swaying. But also it can sort of amp up and tune in that limbic system and help with regulating arousal. So for example, for PTSD, which is what this was granted a de novo for, it can help to sort of balance out that hyperactivation of the limbic system. And it can allow sort of more of a regulation with the top down sort of frontoparietal network versus the limbic system. And it can help to sort of retrain that system and allow a little bit less reactivity. So, for example, in PTSD, this could be really helpful. They also already have clearances for anxiety and sleep. So, very connected with PTSD is sleep and insomnia. Um, so, it's been out on the market. Folks are from Ireland, and I believe it's over in Ireland as well. Um, so that's pretty exciting. It's non-invasive. It's basically like a TENS on the head. There's a lot of these different types of devices that tend to fall under the CES regulation, which is the cranial electrotherapy stimulator. This has been sort of a wild regulation to keep up with over the years. Back in the day, it started out as sort of like, we're going to put some ear clips on your earlobes and like send some pulse currents and do some things. And mechanisms of action have been really different depending on the product, but they all sort of get bucketed under this one larger CES type of umbrella. So there are a lot of those devices under there. But then there's also been devices that are similar in technology, but like I said, sort of a TENS unit on the head for ADHD. So different indication, different classification. Same thing for migraines. So we're starting to see a lot more of these non-invasive products come out. I know for depression, there's been two recently. Flow Neuroscience was the first late last year. So rather than a TENS on the head, that's a different mechanism of action. That's a transcranial direct current stimulator, TDCS. And so that actually penetrates the skull. The electrical current can penetrate the skull and get to the brain. So that sort of targets the frontoparietal system I talked about earlier directly, more directly. Um, Similar, Neurolief, ProLive. This is another PMA that was approved recently on the heels of Flow. Different mechanism of action. Again, falls under the CES bucket, as does Flow. But it's more of that nerve stimulator, so like a TENS, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulator. But it's targeting a couple different nerves, some that are on the front of the head and some that are on the back of the head, so occipital and trigeminal nerves, to treat depression. So we're seeing more of these come out. It's exciting because they're non-invasive. They can be used at home, easy access. A lot of times for especially patients with depression, they're having to go to a clinic for TMS, and that's really hard to keep up with, right? So speaking of keeping up, right? So
Yes.
it's exciting to see some of these more accessible at-home products coming out that are relatively low risk. The benefits have been in question over the years, from the scientific community and FDA alike, but we're starting to get some more evidence coming out that's supporting clinical effects, and it's exciting to see. So those are the ones that I'm most familiar with in the neurospace. Looks like also there was NeuroPax, the AI diffusion MRI aid to help distinguish Parkinson's. That's pretty cool. Haven't
Yeah.
really gotten to dive into there too much, but I'm familiar with, there's a lot of AI for MRI applications. And now when you go to like, I got a scan for my foot the other week, and now they're like, oh, you can sign up and get this FDA cleared scan for breast cancer, like screening, right? So it's exciting to see these adjacent screening tools coming out that, pair on top of like a really expensive MRI. Because if you don't have insurance, or if
Yeah.
you do, it can be expensive. So, um,
I know, I love seeing these things. I feel like the for so long, the folks in radiology, right, OHT8 had all the cool stuff, and then cardiovascular is getting more AI, and then we've been seeing more, and especially we talked about last week about the spectral AI deep view system, right, for
mhm.
like AI burn wound healing assessments. And I feel like there's just, everyone's talking about AI and how like AI is just so cool. And but it's getting booed at all these like college commencement addresses. Like there are
I
people who
know.
are saying AI and all these like Gen Zers are like, boo, you know.
I know.
But
Seen
I'm
it
like,
too.
there's a way that we can also use AI as these like aid to diagnosis or screening tools, or like I think I remain optimistic and also seeing more of these tools across the agency, right? So we see more from OHT1 to OHT8. So
Hmm.
yeah, I was really excited to see about Neurovalence, Neuropax, and the Neuroleaf. Also, I don't know, guys. I feel like random generate name generators can they, yes, we need to know that it's a neuro device, but also they get so confusing at times, I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, which one was that? Like, is it the
Hmm.
anyway, thank you for touching on those. Go ahead, Nilo.
Like three clients that start with the name of some sort of precision.
I
Like,
know.
and I'm going
Yeah.
through it, and I'm like, which one was I talking to last?
Oh, it's so
Um,
tricky.
Laura, I was
Yeah.
kind of curious in the mechanism stuff. Like, old science fiction, right, had electric shock therapy that was supposed to help
Yes.
crazy people, right? Is this like, okay, we're 50 years in front of that, and now we've kind of dialed it in. We don't need to
Yes.
zap people. Okay, that's
Yes.
kind of cool.
So it's not a replacement, right? So ECT is still an available option for treatment resistant, have failed, completely refractory MDD, right? So that is still a very viable option, helps a lot of people. But It's very burdensome, very risky. You have to go in, you have to go under. You're basically being thrown into a series of seizures while you're under, and it sort of like resets a lot of neural circuits when you come out of it. That's the general take on it. That's not the
Okay, yeah.
detailed mechanism. Okay, but that's like what you said, science fiction years ago, this was developed, like shock therapy, right? These technologies that I talked about are super low intensity currents in comparison. So we're talking 2 milliamps probably at the lowest. In fact, if you want to try to claim that you're targeting the brain, you really need to be like 1.5 to 2. Anything lower than that, electric field models, preclinical models, human models, concurrent MRI that I've done with TDCS doesn't suggest that we get through all the layers we need to get through to get to the brain, right? So 2 milliamps is a good sort of starting point. But I've seen these devices, especially for I think ADHD, go up to like 10. I think I might have even seen 16 milliamps or so. Still, these are super low output currents in comparison to the shock therapy, the ECT. So ECT would be, again, that's sort of the most amount of risk for a device to treat depression, MDD, um, highest burden, highest risk burden. But now we have these other options. And again, you have to like go to a clinic, go under, TMS was much better, right? That come around and they're like, you can go in, you can get like electromagnetic fields induced to targetedly induce an electrical current inside of your cortex, or even deeper, depending on the shape of the coil, right? You can go down into the brain. It's still not as good as like a deep brain stimulator, right? Implanted devices in terms of the precision, but much less invasive, still does require you to go to a clinic, right? But these devices, now I'm talking about these CES-like devices or CES-adjacent TENS units. I think what's interesting about the Modius Sparrow is they were able to actually get an like a separate category for sort of their own like vestibular nerve stimulation as a unique sort of mechanism of action. That's not exactly all the run-of-the-mill CES devices that are either sort of non-invasive transcutaneous vagus nerve stimulation, clips on the earlobes, or TDCS or TACS, targeting brain. So they were kind of able to carve out something a little unique there with that new recent de novo. But I'm not sure. I just kind of talked a lot. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. And that's
Okay.
um, I
Yeah,
like
way
that.
less burden basically for patients. Now, I'm not going to say that the clinical evidence suggests that it would replace ECT, right? It seems like from these recent approvals, for example, for Flow and Neuraleaf, Flow was specifically not treatment resistant. So these are folks that um, would not be considered treatment resistant or needing to elevate in the standard of care and go to, say, ECT.
Got it.
Neuraleaf, I believe that it does indicate for treatment-resistant depression, but again, it might not be a replacement for ECT depending on the severity. And all of this, of course, is up to the clinical oversight and the clinician's recommendation of what would be the best for the standard of care based on their clinical state. But not a
So
replacement for ECT, but hopefully before it gets to that point, it can be a tool that can be used at home.
So in the chat, and thank you. So in the chat, Holly is mentioning that she used to work at Western Psych here in Pittsburgh, and witnessing ECT treatments was pretty
Tough.
gnarly. Yeah,
Yeah.
tough. And I think the answer is yes, based on just the lower amperage. But um, is there these new potential alternatives have less side effects than ECT?
For sure. Oh yeah. So the main side effects are going to be basically at the site of the electrical delivery, like stimulation of delivery, which is going to be at the scalp. So you might feel tingling, itching, a sensation of burning. The key is to get good electrical contact. So a lot of them use, say, like a saline solution. Others use a gel interface to basically bridge that gap between the scalp and the device that's delivering the current. If that, impedance gets too high and that bridge isn't good enough, you're at more of a risk for burning. I used to do this. I used to do TDCS inside the MRI for patients with autism. So I'm very familiar with this challenge. But all that to say, that's going to be probably the most noticeable acute effect. You would feel it coming on. The stimulation feels like tingling, itching, burning, etc. But of course, that larger output parameters, it's going to be, those feelings will be more noticeable. The risk of burning will be greater, but at like say 2 to 4 milliamps, it's pretty much not a big deal. And then in terms of other potential side effects, there have been it's a very broad literature, I will say this, like TDCS, TACS, largely known as TES or transcranial electrical stimulation, right? Basically those devices that deliver electricity to the scalp to get to the brain. Those are very broad literatures for a variety of psychological indications, including MDD, right? There's a mix of observed reports of patients having some types of psychological effects. I won't dive into those too much. You can kind of read in, I think, in Flo's SSED. I think I was reading some of this. They do some summary of the literature, reports and things like that. But from what I gather from the clinical studies that have been done, especially recently to support these PMAs and recent clearances, it doesn't seem as though these are major risks. It seems like largely the safety profile and characterization of the device is around sort of the skin contacting electrode and potential burns if the device is not used properly, for the instructions for use and things like that. But I think those are minimal as well, especially at the output parameters that I've seen approved. So yeah, much lower ECT. Again, that's going to induce a seizure. That's going to drastically change immediately how the brain is working. TDCS, TACS, these are more subtle, and basically the mechanism of action is that you take and you induce an electrical current and you change the likelihood that the neurons are going to fire or inhibit, depending on the direction that you send the current. So it's basically shifting like the resting membrane potential so that it's easier for them to fire or harder for them to fire, depending on the direction. But it's not like TMS or ECT where you immediately induce like firing of neurons and a neural change. It's immediate. It's more of sort of a longer duration lasting effect. And these have also, especially in cognitive studies, this is what I was doing in academia in large part, when paired with tasks that are engaging specific neural circuits, it can actually help to amp up performance or engagement of that neural circuit. So for example, for stroke recovery, right? I know there's a lot of studies that do this, or I was doing autism, having participants do a task that engages or should be engaging a specific neural circuit while also trying to increase the likelihood of engagement of that neural circuit with TDCS, TACS, TMS, whatever you're using. Online is what we call it. Online stimulation can help to sort of improve those effects. So I think that's pretty interesting. But
Fascinating. Like, so I was on the ECT panel when I worked at FDA, and it was wild. Like, it was
mm,
one of the, like, I'd seen many panels, I'd gone to them, and this was very different because it was a neuro panel. And what was so abundantly clear to me in that meeting is that devices work for some people and don't work for others. And there's a lot of benefit risk and also patient input that goes into some of these decisions, and those ultimately were reclassified, right, from or like class 2 to class 3 or needing a PMA. So because they're pretty risky devices, they've also been sensationalized by movies, and I mean, who doesn't remember One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest and like some of the video, like the imagery. And it was also used pretty incorrectly for like women who didn't have, any sort of mental disability, or like they were sent to, asylums and given ECT. So there's a lot of
mm,
like stigma and history and trauma around it. Like speaking of trauma, as we were
mm,
earlier, that I think really impacted this device. It's been around for a long time, right? Like it's been around
yes.
for over FDA's regulated medical devices. And what I found so fascinating at that panel meeting was we had a lot of folks come up and speak from personal experience. And some of them were, my parent is no longer here because they had ECT
Mm,
and died from, like, essentially from the complications of it, or based on, it made it worse. And then other people, I think Kitty Dukakis was there, and she was just like, the only reason I'm standing here in front of you today is because of ECT. It saved my life. I
Hmm.
can't, like, nothing worked for me. And so I think what I'm so excited about seeing, more de novos and things come out that are non-invasive. They're, as you said, they can work at home. Maybe they're, yeah, less invasive in general, even though you're not implanting anything with ECT, less
Hmm.
invasive from like a electrical stimulation standpoint. It's just more options, like give people more possible things to try. And yeah, let's see if there's something that works for the various patients before you escalate or before you go to something stronger, right?
Absolutely. And it does give more autonomy as well for this patient population. So something that I think has been seen in Europe, where these devices have been approved and on the market for much longer. We're kind of now just getting around to it in the US and accepting it. But it gives more autonomy and the ability for patients to be able to put on the headset when they feel they need it. At the same time, I think the FDA has done a really great job of trying to safeguard against potential like worsening of symptoms and having clinical oversight to make sure that we're protecting patients that are vulnerable to suicide and things like that. So I think it's been a good compromise that I've witnessed sort of evolving as I've been in this field. And it's exciting to see.
That was my last question on this topic before we kind of jump into some of the other things to keep up on. Was are these devices typically prescription only, or are they stuff you can
Yes.
buy? Okay, prescription only.
100%. They need clinical oversight. You need to basically have your doctor prescribe it and say that they think you're going to be able to use it and that they're going to be, giving some oversight in your use of the product. So
Yeah.
definitely
So
not over the counter for depression, at least yet. There's other, again, like a variety of devices that are non-invasive that go on the head for a variety of indications like migraine, et cetera. That's not to say that there might not be eventually a device that could be used over the counter for different indication, but for things like depression, I don't see that coming anytime soon.
gotcha. Yeah, that's what Mike. I was curious on the insomnia and
Yeah,
migraines and things that are more
less
benign,
of
but not
a
necessarily
risk
more
category.
clearly like connected
Hmm.
to, like you said at the beginning, insomnia and depression disorder and are all and PTSD are all kind of linked. So that was just kind of curious.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen, I mean, this definitely goes into like the wellness space too, right? I had a friend over for dinner last weekend that was just like, "Oh my gosh, I live by this. I don't know, it's a consumer product that changes the bed temperature like based on
Hmm.
how active she and her partner in bed are. Like it'll raise or lower temperature if she's having hot flash or it's like I mean it was like
Nice.
so great, but it was like very non-medical device, right? Like
Hmm.
they've made it very clear and she's like it's I'm sure it helps with people's insomnia, but of course the
Hmm.
company is not saying that, nor should they. It's like once there's clinical and they want to make those claims, that's when they should go to FDA. But I agree, Nyla, there's like so much overlap here, and I think it's good that the companies that and medical device manufacturers are actually like studying it and then going right the right channels. And I think I agree. I think they're for like these should be prescription use mostly because not because people can't use it. Like, I'm pretty sure
Hmm.
I could probably figure out how to place this thing on my head and get it to work. However, if you are suffering from major depressive disorder or PTSD or any of these things, you really should have someone, even if it's not an in-person person in your city, like some either telehealth or some psychiatrist or somebody that's working with you with your treatment. So I think that's
Yeah.
where FDA is like, we don't regulate practice of medicine, but we can make sure that it's prescription use and that it's being used on
Hmm.
label. So,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
I think, sorry, I'm going to totally go off on a bit of a tangent here because one of the things you said about the risks of devices, and especially for non-invasive devices, it was like so clear last night when I was watching. I don't know if you guys watch Jury Duty. There's like, it's like all the people are actors except one person is not. They're actually like in this, like, I don't know, it's a company retreat. And it was so good and so funny, but in the commercials, there's it was like a back to back, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's a medical device commercial, and it was for the Essilor Stellest anyway, it's the prescription spectacle glasses. I pulled it up. Um, to reduce progression of myopia. And I was so excited to see it. I was like, oh my gosh, a medical device commercial. And it was like 5 seconds because I'm sure that's all the money they had to like put it up. And then immediately after was an ophthalmic drug. Like, right? So these are glasses for myopia. And then there was a drug right after that had like 50 things like make sure to talk to your doctor if you suffer from like gas with oily discharge and like can also cause seizures and all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh. And my husband and I are sitting on the couch. I'm like, this is why I like medical devices.
Amen. I'm with you. And this is why FDA will say too, like if you try to say, oh, like, it's less than drugs, they'll say we're totally different from drugs.
Right,
Medical devices and drugs are totally different benefit and risk
right.
profile categories.
Yes. Not that we can't learn things from drugs, and
Yes.
I appreciate when they have an expert in whatever disease from Cedar
Hmm.
to come over and talk to us about
Yes.
here's what we've
Love that.
allowed over in drugs, but then I'm
Yeah.
like, it's a very different risk profile and
Yes.
benefit profile. So
Absolutely.
anyway, it was like one of these moments where I'm like, this is why I do what I do and like what Blue Stocking Health is trying to do. So
Hmm.
moment of clarity. I need to find that commercial because I was just like, I'm so happy when I see device commercial. There like
I've
we
seen that commercial before.
have
It's
you?
on. Yeah, I think I was watching like the NBA
Need to
Finals
find
last
it.
night, and it was on there.
Really? Okay, so
Yeah,
they're pushing hard. I
yeah.
mean, it's also really exciting, right? When you think of like something so simple, and I shouldn't say simple because it's not. It's a device, but it really is. There's no electronics. It's like a certain lens, and you put it on your face like glasses, and it can help um, with myopia in children that are 6 to 12 years of age. Like, how freaking cool is that? So, anyway,
Amazing.
shout out. I don't know that company or I haven't worked, but Essilor of America.
We're gonna look into
Um,
that.
yeah,
I could have used that at age 2.5. Because, I
man,
had the patches and all that stuff. The Wilmer
did
Eye
you?
Institute. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
My
I
daughter
didn't end
had
up with myopia, but
amblyopia.
that's what I
Yeah,
had.
but
Yep.
you
Hmm.
could, I know. And
The
my,
patches, drops, all of it.
all the
So maybe they'll
patches.
like do this for even younger. I had the glasses, so maybe it's coming. It'd be very cool.
Yeah. My daughter was so cute in an eye patch, but she was just like, it gets so sweaty, mama.
You know, I remember that. I was really
Yeah,
young, but I do remember how like hot it was.
one really sweaty little eyeball.
Yes.
Um, all right, let's go into a couple things that happened, and I maybe let's go to the patient one because I think this is really interesting. I know you called BS on it, Nilo, but I'm scrolling to the bottom of our Google Doc.
Yeah.
Patients as advisors in medical device clinical studies, and also there's like a new course. FDA put out an education program, video patients advisors medical device clinical study. Anyway, I'll put the link in the chat, but give us your hot take.
So they put out all this stuff. Oh, yeah, put out all this stuff about how to use patients as advisors in medical device clinical studies and how they should be part. The voice of the patient should be part of the clinical trial design and how you can utilize like lived experience in designing or maintaining clinical studies. And it's great. Honestly, all the information is exactly what you would want to be incorporated into the study design. And unfortunately, every single time that we've approached the FDA with something that goes against the normal, like most regimented hospital experience that the company is trying to improve upon because they know that stinks, um, the FDA's kind of gone, no. We need you to do the clinical study the way we want you to do, and it's very kind of, we'll say, old school, does not take into voice of the patient at all, or only does if it's in line with their previous recommendations. So I was like, I I am extremely hesitant, and I'm usually like, there are definitely reviewers and some maybe review teams that are more open to this, but there are, especially in peripheral, like nerve stim type devices and places where like a lot of voice of the patient should matter.
Yeah.
it they really have not. My I'm I read it and I'm like, yeah, someone should show this to the review teams. That was my immediate thought. So it's not. I'm not usually that negative on these things, but sometimes they pop up and
Yeah.
I'm like, man, there was probably one frustrated reviewer who took because they were shot down on trying to incorporate this that went through and like put this whole thing together because they were passionate about it, and kudos to them. I'd love for this to get more incorporated across the review divisions because it is important. Like, one of the things that, you know, clinical trials are hard to recruit sometimes because of the stigma of
Yeah.
that it isn't best for the patient, and they're not really looking, they don't care about people's lived experiences and anything like that. And then also like devices that are meant that might not have better outcomes but are better for life, the livability, quality of life stuff just doesn't always get incorporated to FDA's thinking, and it's a lot of times it's frustrating. So I hope this does get some traction, beyond telling companies to consider it and then not really considering it internally.
Yeah. That's fair. I think guidance documents are so hard to write though. I feel like this kind of smacks of upper management, like folks saying, "Hey, we need to include something like this." So, um, I think the other thing that was kind of exciting to see, speaking of guidance, was the new or the updated guidance on payer discussions. Have you seen that?
No, I missed that one.
Where'd it go? It was like how to talk to, where is it? Um, Drug and device manufacturer communications with payers, formulary committees, and similar entities, questions and answers. So it's a draft, but someone told me yesterday they're like, "Oh no, this is like an updated one." So it's like how you should actually be communicating with payers. So it seems like FDA is making this big push like how do we get more patient voice? How do we actually get manufacturers to talk with payers earlier? Like maybe I don't know, maybe they're trying to fix some things.
That'd be
So
great.
that's a
Maybe
nice
they're
thing to
listening
see.
to us. We did talk about this with
Maybe they was like, no, they're not.
Rapid, and like that there were existing programs that people don't use because it's hard to get CMS to the table and payers to the
Yeah,
table like on the same schedules. So if they're kind of resurfacing previous attempts to kind of go, hey, try these again, that'd be awesome.
yeah. I'll
Kind of
put the
aligns
link
with
in
the
my chat.
TAP program before I left. I was getting involved in more of the TAP, and I realized that's, resources as available at this stage, especially, but they were really starting to push kind of this, the ends of the spectrum that we're discussing here, sort of from patient voice, recruitment, planning for the clinical trial, and also all the way at the end, the payers, and like making sure that they have a plan before they go through. So it would be great.
Totally agree.
Alan put in the chat, and it's also, I think, related to patient experience and use of the devices that the usability guidance finally got finalized. We talked about it a little bit last week, but I see in the agenda, looks like there's a town hall coming up. Allison, I don't know if you.
Yeah,
Uh,
I threw that in there. It's on the 22nd of July. So they came out with the guidance and then they're like, come to the town hall. And then here's the updated website. So they've updated the whole like human factors page and there's just more content on that FDA link. I put them all in the Riverside chat. But tell us the fun fact about what the domino that also hit, Nilo,
oh,
because I
on
saw you
the
brought it up at the bottom.
oh the new eStar.
Yes.
Yeah, so they updated eStar, and went live on Monday, and it's like fully implemented. You get 60-day grace period, so you can use the old one until the end of July, and then you have to use the new one. It's a major update, and it incorporates this new guidance, and some extra real world how to report and submit real world evidence. But actually, the guide on the human factors is kind of super helpful. It asks you to categorize your usability interactions and like spits out like what type of usability information you should include. Now, I haven't actually had a submission use it yet, so maybe it's a huge pain in the butt. But I I kind of put it as a bullet of like talking about E-Star experience. I'm a troglodyte when it comes to this stuff. I'm always slow to adopt things. Like I'm like, this is dumb. I hate E-Star. I've come full circle. E-Star's great. It does answer. It does make like making sure we check all the boxes helpful. There's still like, I thought originally that it would take away from our ability to tell a good story and like make sure that the
Hmm.
reviewer would understand the stuff. I think we've learned techniques of how to work within eStar, and the bonuses of like this type of stuff of like real guidance inside of your submission form is super helpful. Um,
Yeah.
However, they also updated pre-star, and pre-star is dumb. That's my hot take. Q submissions are so unique and so early stage and can come on with so many different formats. It's so hard to like have a formulaic thing, and I hate pre-star. It's like it it
Yeah.
take Q subs part of like the purpose of a Q sub is to get the FDA to be excited about your stuff, and it takes all the excitement out to me when I look at like what the end result of a pre-star looks like. I'm like, this looks like the TPS memo from Office Space that would like make me lose my mind.
Yeah, so did you get the memos? I totally agree. I wish Pre-Star were better. I do think the Pre-Star, well, at least that PDF also has like the IDE and like it's gonna have all the other ones, right? So there's the non-IVD pre-market, the IVD pre-market, and then the Pre-Star, which is gonna have contain like 513Gs and IDE supplements and like all these various things. But yeah, can we just not with like the pre-sub in the E-Star? I don't know, Laura, you lived this way
I
more
will say,
recently than we
yeah,
did.
I mean, I
How
preferred
was it at
probably
FDA?
reviewing. Um, we always get in a mix, right? So we're still getting a mix of just the plain old Q sub submission, right? Without the pre-star format. And then there some of the newer ones are coming in with the pre-star. At the end of the day, though, with the pre-star, I think the FDA is so used to navigating that they're not thinking about the office space like, oh, this is ugly to look at. We are because we're like preparing it and like putting it together, and it looks dumb compared to one that we can fully format and present
Yeah.
in an elegant way, right? But ultimately, they're clicking on the buttons and opening up the relevant docs. So like you can format the relevant docs to be cute, right? Or as cute as you want them to be. But yeah, I mean I agree from that perspective. It does look more burdensome and kind of dumb. I think when I was there, I didn't have a strong preference. I just basically needed to get to the questions and open up the resources, and it was either scanning through a document all in one or it was clicking on and opening up. So, and then some reviewers don't even click the buttons in the pre-star because when you click, this is true for eStar too. When you click around in it, you can like change it and modify it as the reviewer. You don't want that. So a lot
Yeah.
of times we'll just take the whole folder that has all the attachments and we'll just like peruse them side by side and open the attachments directly. So it's a mixed bag, at least from how we were doing it. But
I think I think the ability to click around is actually what bothers me most
yeah.
about the pre-star is, especially when you're it's the first introduction of something to the FDA, you want someone to read it in a top down, like it's structured that way, and the pre-star
Yes.
makes it very easy to like let me jump to this specific section that like if you didn't read it the section above it, it doesn't work as well, and I think it's way more important for that kind of top down thing in initial conversations than let's say like a 510K where you can there are a lot of standalone sections. Like you should have your
Mhm.
substantial equivalence summary that stands by itself and your biocompetence itself. But like the test plan strategy or your thing, it's like I want you to read what I wrote up here first before you get to that.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I really
It's like a
have to?
story, right? Like
Yeah.
you're really taking them
Mhm.
through the
Do I have to put at the top? Do not read this until you've read this. So kind of stuff.
Or just
maybe it,
reference this section first. Like,
Maybe it should be like when you have to take those sexual harassment trainings or cybersecurity trainings, it like forces you to stay on that page for 2 minutes
Yeah.
until you can go to the next module. Maybe we should. No, I think FDA would get so annoyed with that. But you cannot open this link until you find the key, like Legends of Zelda, to the
Yes.
next thing.
Mhm.
Type in the
I think
password that's only available in the device description.
I think this is I think we have to put together a meme for this. Okay, so let's move on because we have like two or three more things. So there's one other webinar, the Ready webinar, which is on the 24th of this month. I just wanted to bring that up. FDA keeps putting out some new webinars and town halls and things, which I'm glad to see. Please don't get rid of those again, FDA, because last year was really quiet. And do you want to talk a little bit about the exempt codes? Because I saw that came out today. Actually, it comes out
Yeah,
tomorrow, which I
I
always
did
love when
see
they
it
have like,
predated. It was opened up though. They have a new guidance that's intent to exempt certain unclassified medical devices from any 510K. So it's basically, hey, we're going to tell you that we're not going to require 510K for these unclassified devices, and most of them are pre-amendment type ones. Um, I think this draft guidance went out in 2015, and they periodically, I think they added a couple codes in 2019 and then a couple more in 2023. There apparently were five more added to the guidance that they're planning to exempt. Um, I will admit, because I pulled it up right before, I couldn't definitively decide which ones were the new ones added. Um,
yeah,
it said I do one thing I will say though, part of the last year 2025 they implemented a change history part of all guidance documents, and that's super helpful, and I'm really happy that that's in all these new guidances. um,
yeah, they make us do it, and quality system like documentation and
yeah,
stuff. It's like really
but
nice to see the
it's one of
traceability.
those ones like I can't believe this wasn't always required, but it's like a great add to it. But um, yeah, they're pretty benign devices, but like some interesting ones that are on here. I thought were acupuncture devices um, are going to be exempt if they weren't already. Fertility diagnostics, proceptive will be 510K exempt. Prosthetic nails, like fingernails, thought that was interesting. That ever required any 510K
What is
diagnostic nail
what is
exam.
that? What is a prosthetic nail? Is it like it must be for medical purposes? These are not for medical purposes, right? My fake
That's what I
gel
was
nail.
wondering about. Like, were gel nails like a medical device?
I guess if you have
Um,
a split nail, right, it would make sense. Or some sort of like nail glue or something.
some or some like if chemo made you lose all your nails for some reason. Uh,
Yeah, but then our wigs, I don't know. Like, um, can I just tell you a side note again? These nails, and I know that I get wild colors because my daughters usually help me pick my colors, but I used to be a chronic nail biter and I would like pick at my cuticles. I have like such a, like worrisome, I have, anxiety through the roof. These are the only things that finally worked to get me to stop picking and like biting my nails. It was like I had done it for like 20 years. And the day I got these on, it stopped. I have I thank my lucky stars for these. I think they should be a medical device that is exempted because they totally cured me of my nasty nail picking habit.
Ditto.
So there you go.
Toenails for me. I can't
Oh
do the acrylics or the long ones
yeah,
because I can't bite too well. No, it doesn't work.
I know. I'm like, tick, 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 tick. Uh,
so I'm going to put this out there for just because I was curious and quickly looked it up. There was a 510K that went through for these
prosthetic
nails
nail.
in 2023, and it took 300 review days
Drop it.
to get through. And its nail lift is an ingrown toenail corrector that corrects incorrect nail
Yes.
curvature by lifting the
Yeah.
curved toenails into a more natural shape upon application. The correction of
I've
nail
Hmm.
seen
curvature
those
is
because
also
they press it on the toenail. Sorry. Sorry,
yeah.
keep going.
Oh no, that was the end of it. That was just Oh, and I actually know the correspondent, the consultant. It's Kelly Anderson.
Who?
She's great.
Oh, Kelly.
Yeah, that was. She gets some
Um,
interesting ones. That's definitely a weird one.
oh, that's speaking of Kelly, we're gonna name drop her now as part of this. I think I first met her at Reg AF,
This.
which
Oh
was
yeah, probably. For,
ages
yeah,
ago,
yeah.
and I'm wearing my shirt today, guys,
Nice.
because you're hearing it. Well, I've already shared this, but it's coming back. And Laura, you might have to be a speaker at Reg AF in February. So it's gonna be February 22nd to 24th. It's gonna be in San Diego. Um,
There, San
we're
Diego.
only we're capping the tickets, so if people don't buy early, you ain't coming. And it's gonna be so good this year. I also have some really we're gonna do some fun things.
Sweet.
It's always been fun, but this is gonna be like next level shenanigans. Again, it's not a conference, it's an experience. So
This is not a podcast. It's an
this is
experience.
not about it's an experience. There will be a sound bath. So okay,
Amazing.
yeah, I'm gonna
I'll
website's
bring my
almost together.
yoga.
Bring your yoga mats, or we will have them there. We're gonna have it's gonna be a whole experience. I've heard that wellness retreats are like the big thing that people are going to now of like no more conferences or they'll like center it around yoga and then they'll also talk about other things. But I'm like, anyway, this is gonna be MedTech conference like no other. Another thing I did, which I will like release on the Blue Stocking Health page, is I could not fall asleep the other night, and I put together a whole list of all the MedTech conferences I have ever heard of, or like the ones that I heard of afterwards, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should have gone to that. And so it's like 60, 70 conferences and all the links and all the dates that they were in 2026 and then I have the ones that have already posted their 2027 dates. Reg AF is in there.
Sweet.
And I'm going to put this out so people can be like, okay, which conferences should I go to? Because I feel like we talk about this on the Slack channel too of like, hey, who's going to go to this conference? And I missed so many of them. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, Laura was there. I should have gone, you know? So,
I always miss the deadlines for like, because Allison, people like call you and say, "Hey, do you want to come talk at this conference next week?" That doesn't happen to
yeah.
me very often. So I always have to like get the
Bummer.
applications, yeah, get the applications in. But they ask for these things like 9 months in advance. I'm like, how do I know what a hot topic will be a year from now?
Yeah, that's true.
But I do miss those deadlines a lot because they're always
Yeah.
right at the beginning of the new year for October conferences.
It's like summer camps, man. Like maybe that's another column I'll include is like when do you need to submit if you want to give a talk and what do you need when do you need to actually register by to get like early bird? Because sometimes I'm like, "Oh, now it's like $500 more. I don't want to go to that anymore."
Yeah.
So, okay, you're giving me some ideas. I'm making notes. Um it's like summer camp when you have to like honestly my kids are in camp right now and the only reason they got into this camp is because I booked it in February. Like
Mhm.
like how do you and I had put it in my calendar because the first year I, was not varsity parenting. I screwed up, missed all the summer camps, and then you're scrambling later on. So same thing goes for conferences. Anything else we want to talk about? I know there were some cool breakthroughs, Laura, that you had posted. Any hot ones that you want to bring up?
I'm just looking again here. Oh, you were talking about the sort of the vision advertisement you're seeing. I'm seeing revision implant, visual cortex prosthesis, ocular.
Cool. I
It's
love all
pretty
the
cool.
ophthalmic stuff.
Yeah, and then the Cerebell LVO stroke detection monitor. That's a point of care EEG and AI.
But yeah.
That
Yeah,
one,
for large vessel occlusion stroke.
that one makes me a
That's a
little
while back. That's January, but
that one makes me a little angry because I had a client try for 3 or 4 times for that same indication that we couldn't get through as breakthrough,
mm,
and now someone else did. Um, I did get
yeah.
Someone
the
had
Alzheimer the
someone had the
Alz
clinical.
yeah, that's what it was. The Alzheimer's test though, doing a like a pee on a stick or pee in a cup
Mm,
to diagnose Alzheimer's is super interesting because I thought they had kind of discounted some of the amyloid data. There was a whole like kerfuffle about some of the data being faked and all that kind of stuff, and I am curious how that comes through. I don't, Laura, you were probably way more connected to that, being in academia and neuro and neuro at the same time. But I remember that seeing some of the articles in the Atlantic and things like that about scandal amongst for those amyloid studies for Alzheimer's.
Yeah, TBD, I guess, right? Time will tell. Clinical studies and FDA will vet it pretty well.
Yeah, it's.
So
I mean, it's. I mean,
they're
it'll be
they're in
awesome.
there now, I guess. They're in the pipeline.
Yeah.
There's also the bladder risk stratification, and diagnostic bladder cancer risk stratification. It seems like sort of lots of different organ cancers and risks and screening tools and AI-based algorithms is sort of blowing up nowadays. Makes sense. But that's pretty cool too.
Yep. Love it. I think that there are more breakthroughs as we anticipated, thanks to all the tap and rapid shenanigans. So,
Hmm.
um, good shenanigans, right? I'm hoping that more of those things will see the light of day. But so when I was in at FDA, we used to do like actually it was James Swigger. Gonna drop his name in here now. He's gonna have to listen to this whole thing to get to his name. But he would bring, because he worked at the Patent and Trade Office, he would bring all the patents that had just made it through for like spine devices, and we would look at them and kind of talk about like what would be some of the risks and the benefits of these various devices that had gotten a patent, and then blow me down if a few months later, like, there would be one that would come across our desk that had been tested and that was now ready for FDA, review. So anyway, it kind of reminds me of these breakthroughs when people are posting about them. It's like, all right, let's see which ones hit, and like talk about the benefits and risks of them. So, that's all we got time for, guys. Look at us, 1 minute early. Laura, thank you for joining us. I've like I kept trying to like figure out what to put under your name for your title, and you are just titleless. You are like
Cannot be defined.
just cannot be
I'm a
defined.
mismatch of
You
like
are
a
ungovernable.
odd combination of things. Engineer, clinical neuroscientist, data nerd.
Yeah.
I'm just a big nerd. You can call me a nerd. I'm a nerd.
Just here, we're gonna
I
put
love
just
it.
big,
I'm a
big nerd.
big time nerd, and I
There we
love to
go.
do big time nerd stuff for my job. Like what? So cool. Thanks for having me. It's
Absolutely.
an honor and a pleasure to work with you guys and to chat with you. And thanks for everything you do and trying to keep up. I think it's a great service to the community, especially in these times that we're moving through. So
Trying to keep up.
you're
All
doing it.
right, thanks everybody. I won't be
Bye.
here
Thanks.
next week, so Nilo's, you're up with
Hosting.
Caroline. Woo woo.
Awesome
All right,
dude. Awesome new dude,
awesome
Nyla.
dude. All right, bye
Thanks.
guys.
Bye.
Hold on, rewind. What did they say? Allison and Nilo just winging away. Regs and guidance, we'll try our luck. Just two folks out here trying to keep